Hey Grownups, looking for a meaningful screen-free activity for your Tailblazers this summer? May I introduce you to the Girl Tales Pen Pal program. It is a special opportunity for Tailblazers around the world to connect through their shared love of stories and good old-fashioned letter writing. This program is exclusively for Girl Tales Club members at $7 a month or more on Patreon. When you join, your child gets so much more than just a pen pal. They'll also receive a shout-out on the podcast, access to our monthly Girl Tales Club meetings, and other special surprises along the way. Each month, we'll provide creative prompts to inspire your Tailblazers' letters, helping them grow in patience, imagination, and self-expression, all while making a new friend through the magic of snail mail. Sign up today at patreon.com/girltales. Pen Pal matches go out June 15th. That's patreon.com/girltales.
Hey Tailblazers, my name is Amia.
I'm Rebecca Cunningham.
And this is Girl Tales,
a kids podcast of feminist stories for a new generation.
Before we get started, I'd like to wish a very happy 6th birthday to Maggie and a very happy 8th birthday to Roxy in Nashville. Maggie and Roxy, thank you so much for being such incredible Tailblazers and for listening to Girl Tales. I hope you have the best birthday ever. Grownups, if you would like to hear your child's name at the top of our next tale, head to patreon.com/girltales and donate today. Oh, and hey, do you love Girl Tales and making your own stories at home? Well, the Girl Tales Starter Pack is made just for you. It includes a vintage book of fairy tales, a Tailblazer pencil, a Girl Tales notebook, bookmark, and sticker. Everything you need to dream up your own magical adventures. Grownups can grab one now at girltalespodcast.com/shop. Now on to our episode. This is Barbara Johns and the Moton Student Strike. Enjoy! Have you heard of a town called Farmville, Virginia? Maybe you live there, or near there, or are from a place like it. Farmville is a small town in southern Virginia, located in Prince Edward County at the headwaters of the Appomattox River, named for the Appomattox Native Americans who lived along its lower banks in the 1600s. Beyond the river, the town is known for its lush countryside, including the High Bridge Trail State Park, with sweeping views of nearby woodlands and rural farmland. Today, Farmville has a population of less than 8,000 people, but don't let the size fool you. This town is home to some major history. As a matter of fact, did you know Farmville is where the student-led civil rights movement began in the United States? I didn't, but now I do. Farmville, Virginia is where one amazing visionary student named Barbara Rose Johns set a brave plan into motion at her very own school that sparked an even bigger change for the whole country. Now, the summers in Farmville are humid and hot, but the winters there can still get pretty cold, including the winter of 1951, when the temperatures dropped below freezing. In 1951, all the schools in Prince Edward County were segregated. In other words, black students and white students were forced to attend different schools. But not all schools were created equal. While white students in Farmville went to schools with solid buildings, public spaces, new books, and proper heating, the all-black schools across town had no gymnasiums or cafeterias, shabby equipment, and hand-me-down books, relied on outhouses instead of indoor bathrooms, and, worst of all, they had no heat. Can you imagine how cold it must have been for those students, shivering in their classrooms? Teachers often moved their classes onto the buses because they were warmer than the classrooms. Robert Russa Moton High School had some of the worst conditions around. One very chilly day, music teacher Ms. Inez Jones gathered her class on one of those very buses. The students groaned. The bus may have been warmer than the inside of the school, but it was also crowded. and smelly.
I know, y'all. It's awful that we have to move our classes out here, but it doesn't always have to be this way.
16-year-old Barbara Johns sat near the front of the bus. She cocked her head at her teacher, curious.
What do you mean, Miss Jones? How could it be any other way?
Well, just last year, the whole community came together to buy a record player for our classroom since we didn't have one, didn't they? What else might be possible? Y'all want change, so why don't you do something about it?
Miss Jones may have been speaking to the whole class, but it felt like she was talking to Barbara directly. And so Barbara wrapped her arms to her chest, and while Miss Jones continued her lessons on scales for the day, Barbara started to dream and plan about what she could do about it, determined to make a change. Barbara grew up around incredible leaders in her community, including her uncle, the Reverend Vernon Johns, who was a pioneer leader in the civil rights movement, working tirelessly for equal rights for all Black people in America. As the oldest of 5, Barbara's parents often left her to watch her siblings during the week while they worked. But whenever she could get away, she loved to pick out a favorite book from her Uncle Vernon's library on their neighboring farm. She'd disappear to a quiet corner to read books by the educator and leader Booker T. Washington, novelist H.G. Wells, and more. Barbara may have been quiet and studious, but she also had a big imagination. She hadn't been able to stop thinking about what Miss Jones suggested during class the month before. After school one day, she approached Ms. Jones with her strategy.
What if we organize the student walkout? We'll get everyone's attention. The school board, the mayor, maybe even the whole state, and they'll have to listen. We can't go to school in these conditions anymore. We need a new building. We demand a change.
Miss Jones loved Barbara's enthusiasm, but she also knew that people can be scared of change. And not everyone might be as excited about Barbara's ideas as she was. They needed to have a strong plan of action in place. So Barbara and Ms. Jones began to organize through secret notes hidden in a music book, passed back and forth for months. But it was a tragic day that fully propelled Barbara into action. The buses for Black students in the county were the old, run-down buses from white schools. In March of 1951, one of these buses carrying a group of students broke down on a railroad track, and an oncoming train crashed into the back of the bus. 5 Black children were killed, including one of Barbara's best friends. Barbara was heartbroken and angry. It wasn't fair how Black students continually had to live with sloppy seconds from their white peers. It was unimaginable how easy it could be for something terrible like the bus accident to happen again. They couldn't lose any more students. They could not wait any longer. On April 23, 1951, 450 students and teachers gathered on folding chairs in the Moton High School auditorium. In addition to her planning with Ms. Jones, Barbara assembled a group of trusted fellow students, J.A. Stokes, Carrie Stokes, and Irene Taylor, to help mount excitement among their classmates. Together, their inner circle started a top-secret petition about a possible strike, and before long, they'd managed to get signatures from nearly every student at their school. All the students recognized the injustice at Moton High School. After all, they lived it too, and were invested in the walkout. They wanted a new school building as much as Barbara did, and believed their action could lead to change. Barbara stood at the podium, ready to address the crowd she and her friends and fellow organizers brought there. Her legs were shaking, but she didn't let on that she was nervous. She'd been waiting for this day for a long time. In a clear voice, she spoke out.
I'd like to ask our teachers to please leave. This assembly is for the students.
Barbara couldn't believe the teachers actually listened. But she watched them exit the auditorium one by one, and soon the doors closed. She and Ms. Jones formed a plan to keep the principal away from the assembly too, and now Barbara had the entire student body all to herself. Normally, the students were talkative and loud when they were all together, but not that day. Instead, they waited quietly and patiently for Barbara to speak. She knew this was her moment. She cleared her throat and continued with all the fire she'd learned from her Uncle Vernon's sermons.
My fellow students, the time has come for us to stand up for a better school. As of today, we're walking out these doors and going on strike. Who's with me? Who is with me?
The students all marched out of the auditorium that day feeling confident. Barbara buzzed with joy, believing that things would shift starting then. But despite Barbara and her fellow student protesters' high hopes, change did not happen overnight for Moton High School or the other black schools in Prince Edward County. When the superintendent insisted that the students return to school, Carrie Stokes, one of Barbara's fellow student strike organizers, wrote a letter to a law firm in Richmond, Virginia, associated with the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Eventually, they joined forces with the community to demand desegregation for Prince Edward County. In 1954, the Farmville case became one of 5 cases that the U.S. Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, reviewed in Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka. This court case declared segregation unconstitutional and illegal. Even after the landmark ruling, certain white politicians wanted to prove a point. They resisted desegregation in the area and managed to keep all schools in Prince Edward County closed from 1959 to 1964. One former student talked about how she and other kids in the area pretended to live in an abandoned house where they would catch the bus to go to school in the next county. They wanted to learn, despite the opposition. It was a slow rebuilding process, but eventually a strong public education system for students of all races emerged in Prince Edward County, thanks to the legacy that began with Barbara Johns and her classmates. A reminder that even though lasting change isn't usually easy to come by, it's still always worth taking action to fight injustice. Barbara eventually went on to become a school librarian in the Philadelphia school system, where she served for 20 years. Though Barbara rarely spoke about her historic strike later in life, in 2020, the state of Virginia honored her by replacing a statue of General Robert E. Lee, the man who led the Confederate Army in the United States Civil War, with one of her, Barbara Rose Johns, in the United States Capitol's National Statuary Hall collection. Today, the former Robert Russa Moton High School is a national historical landmark and museum, the birthplace of America's student-led civil rights revolution. If you're nearby, you should go and pay the museum a visit. You can even sit in the auditorium where Barbara rallied students on that day in 1951. Barbara proved that you can make a change at any age and has served as an inspiration for other student activists and advocates over the years, including Mary Beth Tinker and her 5 classmates who wore anti-war armbands and won a Supreme Court case protecting student-free speech, X Gonzalez, and the Parkland student-organized March for Our Lives in support of gun reform, as well as Greta Thunberg and her global climate strikes, just to name a few. Are you the Barbara Johns in your community, your school, your place of worship? Maybe you see injustice brewing and are ready to take a stand and make a change for you and people you know and care about. In the words of Barbara's inspiring music teacher, Ms. Inez Jones, what else might be possible? Why don't you do something about it? That was Barbara Johns and the Moton School Strike. Written by C.Q. Quintana. Produced by Chenail. Performed by Rebecca Cunningham, Samantha G., and Mehret Marsh. Executive produced by Rebecca Cunningham. Grownups, if your Tailblazer would like to join the Girl Tales Club, head to patreon.com/girltales and join the Girl Tales Club team or above. Produced by Chenail. Performed by Tessa Flannery and Rebecca Cunningham. Executive produced by Rebecca Cunningham. Girl Tales is a Cordelia Studios production. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. And Grownups, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you for listening, and remember, I believe in you.
There's a hill and a road and a path where I know you must go. Through the sun, wind, rain, or snow. But wherever you venture, you can always come home. 'Cause I trust your heart, I trust my heart, and I trust your mind, I trust my mind, and I trust the friends, I trust the friends I know you will find o'er the hill and on the road. So off you